to Malika Ganley. She's just joined us as our new food ambassador. Malika is a chef, a nutritionist, and also does a lot of recipe development. She's got some beautiful recipes for you today. She's passionate about using food to heal and nourish and connect with others. She's been living with celiac disease herself, so she's well placed to answer any questions you have around healthy, gluten-free living. Malika's career is really diverse. She has a Bachelor of Science in Human Nutrition. She's also run cafés. She's catered for events and has been a chef travelling the world for various clients. And we're really delighted that today she's going to present 2 recipes she's developed for the iconic brands Vogel's and Edmonds. So, yeah,
Thanks.
Everyone, let's enjoy.
Thanks, Dana.
Thank you.
Well, I was going to start off with a bio a little bit about myself, but I don't need to do it now, so thank you. It's never the favourite part, speaking about yourself, so there we go, I can just jump right into it. So welcome everyone. As Dana said, my name is Malika, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. What a great festival. It is very exciting. You can feel the vibes almost coming in here from out there, can't you? It is just wonderful, and to be in a space where, yeah, you feel safe, you feel just a whole, I guess it's a level of happiness and joy and enjoyment, which is what gluten-free living should really all be about. To me, it should be about full flavour and nourishment and just being able to enjoy food. And I know that for myself and probably for a lot of you out there, that there's been probably a moment in time in life where food has been challenging, regardless of where you are, I guess, in your journey, whether you are gluten-free yourself, or if you are caring for someone who is gluten-free. It can sometimes be quite overwhelming to begin with. We can often go into a sense of freeze mode, and what do we do? How do we find nourishment? What do we turn to? So I understand that, as Dana said, being diagnosed with celiac about 7 years ago, I've been on that full journey, and even with a big background in food and education in food, I still found it difficult. So I guess I deep dived into how you can use food as medicine and how you can continue that joy. I always found joy in kitchens and in food and in creating, and that kind of slipped away for a little while until I just found the way of living with the sense of, I guess, using whole foods, using pantry staples that can create beautiful dishes. So I'm going to share a couple of recipes anyway with you today. They are based around some of our very well-trusted and reliable products. So we're using one recipe. The first recipe we're going to do today is with Vogel's gluten-free bread. This recipe is, I've used the white gluten-free bread, but obviously there's the big range, so we can use any of them. On your seats, there was a recipe card here. And after I've done this recipe, we're going to go into another one where I'm heroing the Edmonds gluten-free baking flour. That recipe is not with you today, but it is on the website, so it's on the Coeliac New Zealand website, and it's also on the Goodman Fielder website, Edmonds website, sorry. So you'll find that there, and I'll talk you through it all anyway. But we're going to start off, straight off the bat, we're going to have some samples handed around of this recipe that I'm going to do, so you can taste first and I'll talk you through it. Reason being is that they're a little bit warm, so we'll get them out there now. So, first recipe is, this is my take on a croque monsieur. So, it definitely isn't the classic one, but we're using, so croque monsieur, so it's loaded with a Korean cream cheese, kimchi, and brisket, and rocket. So you're probably looking at it and being like, Korean cream cheese? Like, what is that? But I got inspired by these garlic bread, Korean garlic bread street food that went viral. I don't know, it was a number of years ago now. They were super super classic through Korea, and then they made this sort of worldwide spread. They're this bun that's cut into 6 little pieces, and it's piped with this cream cheese that's kind of like sweet and tangy and salty. It's got all of the flavours going on, and then it's dipped into a garlic butter custard. So it sort of sets, and it's just delicious. So this is a bit of a take on this. And if I have time, I'll talk you through a little bit later about how you can make those little gluten-free buns too, using the bun, the Vogel's bun. But so we'll get started. Hopefully this is still a really good example of what it is. They're really crispy on the outside and sort of gooey and moist on the inside, and it's super garlicky, and it's just got all of those balances of flavours there. The kimchi sort of gives it a little bit of a hit, and the rocket gives it that peppery taste. So we're going to make the cream cheese. So we're using today the Meadow Fresh cream cheese and the spreadable version. So Meadow Fresh because it's a great New Zealand product, and spreadable because it's really malleable and easy to use. So popping that straight into a bowl, and from here we just give it a little bit of a push around. And as I had mentioned, the take on the Korean cream cheese, it's actually they make it really quite sweet. To me, that's not my flavour, but I like a little bit of sweetness. So we'll just pop in a small amount of sugar. And that really does balance out the creaminess. So we've got that sugar, we're doing a little bit of pepper, we're doing some salt. And again, talking about balancing flavours, we're going to use some heat. So the wonderful thing with dishes like this, there's not a big science behind it. So this is where you really want to use what works to your taste and what you like. So you like heat, add more heat. You don't like heat, take it away. So I'm going to add about a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Hot sauce, whatever your choice of hot sauce is. If you're into it, again, use more. A smoky hot sauce would be really super beautiful in this also. So just a couple of tablespoons of that. And then we've got some parsley and rocket. Now rocket, I love rocket. Rocket is one of my absolute favourite go-tos. We use it in our house as a lettuce. It's really the only lettuce that we use, but often around the world and especially in the States, they class it more, they call it arugula, and they class it more as a herb. And so that's why I just love cutting it through all sorts of different things. It just the flavour spreads. It's that real peppery, yummy, delicious taste. And again, that's balancing out those flavours there. We're going to put through some spring onions. So spring onions, wonderful again. Really diverse in the sense that you can use them to cook with, you can use them raw, you can use them to garnish. A really great boost of flavour. So if you're cooking with them, often you would use just the white parts. That's always the best part to use. It's a little bit more pungent, a little bit more strong, and then moving into the greener bits, they're a little bit more fresh. So throwing those in, and again, this can be more to your liking. So if you like more of that oniony taste, then get into it and throw more than say 3 sprigs in. But to me, this is a really well-balanced recipe if you sort of have mid to mild taste. And again, you can use pretty much the full length of the spring onion. Often people will only use one end or the other, but use it all, and no food wastage, which is really what we want as well. So just mixing that up. And this can be used on all sorts of things. Obviously, cream cheese is the carrier of lots and any flavour. So beautiful. You could use it as a base for canapes even, which would be really nice. This would be a beautiful base even to add to little bellinis or little crostinis, gluten-free of course, and add some salmon on top or whichever. So there we go. So we're just going to pop this aside for a moment. So that's our mix. Next, we're going to make the garlic custard butter. So this is delicious. Normally, if I see a recipe and there's, say, 1 clove of garlic, I'm like, oh, 1 clove of garlic, that's just not enough. Like, surely we've got to put more than that in. But anyway, this particular, this custard calls for 6 cloves of garlic, so it is blow your socks off, and it's really great. So maybe don't add any more to that, but of course, entirely up to you. So here we're going to work with some melted butter. So I'm just going to pop that in to melt here. Then we're going to, I'm just going to cut down. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about garlic as well. Sorry, that was just one bit that I missed out of the last one. So we've just got 1 clove of garlic there. So I use a microplane. I don't know how many people have one of these at home, but these are such an epic tool to have in the kitchen. They're really good. I use them a lot for garlic. I would prefer it any day over a crusher. Like I don't have a crusher in my kitchen, a garlic crusher. I know it's a tool that a lot of people have, and it's in a lot of kitchens, but it doesn't use the whole clove of the garlic, so you get so much left behind, and it's always a real pain to clean out too, isn't it? So you have something like this, and you can just quickly give it a quick microplane. And as well, depending on, microplanes come in all sorts of different styles, but this one has a really fine side and a little bit of a coarser side. So this will spread really nicely through the mix. Whereas the next lot that I'm going to do with the garlic is I'm going to chop it, and the reason that I'm going to chop it is because I don't want it to be so fine. So garlic, often it's really good to look into what a recipe is asking of you. So if it's finely chopped, great. If it's crushed, great. But when you're cooking something off, and garlic particularly, you really don't want it to burn. Like burnt garlic is really horrible, like that real pungenty kind of just stringenty taste. It's to me, it's not nice. So you don't want it super fine. So I would never cook garlic from using it from a microplane. I would always cut it. And when I cut it, I will cut it down lengthways, and I'll take it then through the middle, and then I will chop from there. So I'll do that with however many cloves you're using, and then I'll chop it all again so that it's a universal size. Often in dishes and cooked dishes, when you're asked to have to cook garlic and onions off, and a lot of recipes will say to cook onions and garlic at the same time. So my answer to that is that it's probably not right, or no, it's definitely not right unless you want undercooked onions or burnt garlic. So always cook off your onions slow and low so that it gives a really beautiful flavour base. And let them cook until they're opaque in colour, and then add in your garlic after that. And garlic really only needs a minute or two until you get that beautiful fragrant smell. So yeah, that's just a little bit of kitchen advice. Great. So that's going to be the base for our garlic butter. Another thing that I'll say here about tools is a sharp knife. So if anyone's been thinking about maybe getting their knives sharpened and has been thinking about it and don't work with sharp knives, I'd highly recommend this being a sign to go and get your knife sharpened, because working with a sharp knife is one of life's joys, I think. So yeah, you can find knife sharpeners all over in most little towns and areas. So make that happen, because it is. Oh, this is not wanting to sit there for me. Make that happen. It's always a beautiful thing to work with a nice sharp knife. So onto our garlic butter. So we're going to add that to the bowl. So this is just the first measure that's been melted in the microwave. So butter there. So when you melt, often you'll see the butter separate from the whey from the clarified butter, and it's but I always like to use all of it. There's certain times where you would separate, but this doesn't call for that. So we've got that followed by a little bit of mayonnaise. Tablespoon of mayonnaise. So we're really loading it up with all the good stuff. I wouldn't be calorie counting eating this one. This one's in the treat, but such comfort food and such deliciousness. So it's all good. So we're adding salt again, a little bit of salt in there, a little bit of pepper. We're adding a wee bit of sweetness, and again, it's always optional, just a little bit of maple syrup. And then we're adding our herbs again, so a wee bit of parsley and some rocket. Could you taste the sweetness as you ate that before? Yeah, it sort of balances out though, doesn't it? Did you find it balanced out with the creaminess? We're whisking 1 egg. And I'm going to get this started. Here we go. So we're going to cook down, this is just the second measure of butter. My tiny little pan doesn't want to sit on there. So the second measure of butter, so we're putting that into there, and we're going to cook off some of this garlic, just so that when we get to spreading this and dipping the bread in the custard, it just gives it a little bit of a head start before putting it in the oven, and it also infuses the butter, which is really beautiful. So we'll just let that melt down a little bit. You can add in the garlic, and you want, it states in the recipe, I think, to let it cook for a minute, so you don't want it on a super high heat. Oops. But enough heat so that it's actually on. There we go. So just cook it, and again, cooking it for that minute and then just leaving it to sit for a minute, just so that it all infuses beautifully. Turn that off. I'll give everything a little bit of a mix here. And a whisk. So when we dip the bread, which we're going to do very soon, it's a real example of why Vogel's gluten-free bread is brilliant, and how versatile it is. This really holds its shape. A lot of bread doesn't hold its shape. A lot of gluten-free bread doesn't. So this is a really wonderful use, and shows the versatility of what you can use the Vogel's bread for. They are always, it's a really cutting-edge technology, I guess, that they're using to try to create a loaf that is as close to the real bread as possible. And I think if anyone's used this as sandwich bread, they'll really be aware of that as well, that it does hold. So a really nice, reliable source and brand to keep in your mind. So there we go. We've got the custard with this, with adding the egg to the custard, to the butter. It gives it this real binder, so that when you bake it, it creates sort of like a crust. So it's almost like a savoury French toast, I guess you could say as well. So just a little bit here of Meadow Fresh milk, and mixing that through. So I'm going to show you the assembling now. While I'm doing this, I'll just talk to you a little bit as well about the brisket. So I'm not going to go into too much depth with the brisket. The brisket is just a slow cooked. I always put a brisket on overnight. So There's a mix that I've put in that recipe, a rub mix, and that's really awesome to have on hand for any meat. So, and veggies actually as well. So you can make a big amount of it and just keep it in the cupboard. So awesome over chicken, awesome over pork, delicious with prawns, and also I guess you could throw it in with a good sprinkling over any veggies, which is really nice, like any roasted veggies, or maybe even cooking off mushrooms and finishing it with a little bit of that to season. So a really great spice mix to, like, a general spice mix to have on hand. So brisket, rubbing it with that mix, and then you can sear it off if you want to seal it before putting it into a slow cooker, but if you're time poor, then just putting it straight into the slow cooker. You can even put just water over the top if you wanted to, and cooking it overnight in a slow cooker, and then shredding it from there. So that's the brisket. I'll give time for some questions afterwards, so if anyone wants to ask anything more around that, then please yell out. Every time I open a gluten-free Vogel's loaf, I always get excited how it's a resealable packet, which is always, I find, very exciting. Okay, so the white one. So, I mean, I think you can see just by looking at it, its texture, and it's soft. And it just has that real bread-like feel and look. So there we go. And as we dip it, we really want to sort of mush it around so that we can get and pick up the garlic and all of those beautiful herbs in there. So we're doing that, and we're popping it down onto a tray, an oven tray that's lined. And same with the other piece. Whilst you're loading this up and making it, the custard kind of sets, which is another thing. The butter sets a little bit, which is another thing that seals it, so that again you can get that crispiness. So there we go. So that to me is the French toast element of it all. That dipping. We're going to add on our loaded cream cheese. So as much or as little as you want, but, well, too much and it's going to go everywhere when you cook it. And another little bit of advice is probably not to spread it out too far to the edges. So I just like to do it sort of so that there's a little bit of space for it to spread. But if you want it super gooey, then I would put a little bit more on there. Now the brisket, just a little bit of I like to do, say, okay, put about 30 to 40 grams in there of brisket. You can do more if you want more. This is really great as a brunch dish or a lunch dish or a light dinner. Beautiful to add with a salad, a side salad to it, just to sort of cut a little bit of that creaminess. And then topping it off with some kimchi or sauerkraut or whichever, if you're into that kind of stuff. There's a really beautiful, I don't make, that's one of the few things that I probably don't really make, but I don't make sauerkraut, but I like to use, there's some great options in the supermarket and in health stores. So I think this is the Living Goodness one, which I love, and I just love the colour of it too. I just think it's so beautiful. And this really balances this dish out. Even if you're not a huge fan of it, I would say that you'd possibly quite enjoy it in this dish. So that's it. It's simple. It's easy. Oh no, it's not quite it actually. Let's put this on top. We don't want to forget this last bit because this is the delicious bit as well. Just a whole load of Parmesan. So again, microplane, another use for it. And grating over the top, just adding another lot of cheese and richness to the cheese and richness that it already is. And then some chives. So from here, place this into the oven for about 15 to 18 minutes, just depending on what your oven's like. I'll always I would always use just a bake function for doing this, and placing your dish in the lower part of the oven. That just allows for really beautiful even crispiness. Fan bake, it just becomes a little bit uneven, and same thing when I go into the baking dish next. I will explain a little bit more about that as well. So low oven, bake function, in about 15 minutes, and then pull it out and just leave it to sit for about 5 minutes. And I would, from there, one that I prepared earlier, from there, I will lift up the top, so 5 minutes resting so that it just all comes together, and then I would take my handful of rocket, pop it on the top, and then slice it down, and it's ready to go. If you're not a meat eater, this would be really nice, completely minus the, would be completely fine, just minus the brisket, but mushrooms in there would be super nice as well, just sauteed mushrooms, really delicious. So like I said, beautiful to serve just as is, or with a beautiful salad next to it. Maybe I would always say rocket, so a rocket with a lemony dressing, yum. Or to a side of a soup would be really nice as well. So a dish that can carry through any time of the day, any time of the year, and is just really delicious and comfort food and yum. So there we go. That's our first recipe done. We're going to be moving on from here to a baked dish. This one that I'm going to do next is a pistachio crumble. It's a pistachio crumble slice, and it's got a matcha, raspberry, and dark chocolate frangipani, and then a pistachio crumble across the top of it. So this is a really yummy balanced dish too. There's going to be some samples coming around right now, so you can have a little taste of this. As I mentioned, you don't have the recipe cards in front of you, but please feel free to go on the website, and so Coeliac New Zealand website again, and or the Edmonds website. They're up on both those sites. Just as I'm getting ready for this next demo, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Coeliac New Zealand. So if you're not a member already, I would highly recommend that if you're interested, if you are a celiac for starters, absolutely, but even if you're interested just in the gluten-free side of things and how all of that works, then to go and see the team, Dana and the team down the back. It's a not-for-profit organisation. It's really committed to helping celiacs with everyday living and really easy everyday living. It works with a medical advisory board and advocates for a lot to do with, or for everything to do with celiac disease. And they, so really worth going to chat to them if you're not already a member. I wish it was something that I had known about when I had first been diagnosed, and I'm sure those of you that are members would probably agree. Outside, there's actually some celiac linked magazines, which I think are there to take, aren't they? Yeah, so they're outside. So that's another great thing that is done, is that there's publications that come out with a lot of information in them. So yeah, please help yourself on the way out. Now, I hope has everyone got a piece? Oh, we're getting there. So now it doesn't have to be up to your imagination without seeing what it looks like or seeing the recipe. So we're going to start off with making a shortbread base. So crumble slice, we've got our base, we've got our frangipani in the middle, and then on the top we've got the crumble. So 3 layers, and I always think with a slice that's a crumble, it's like a 2-for-1 almost, because the layering is always so beautiful, but we're reusing, obviously, the base, adding a few little bits and crumbling it on top. So I'll show you as I work through it. Before I start, I will I'll just be one moment. So I'm just going to talk you through lining a dish, your baking dish, and how to do that easily so that we get really nice corners with the baking paper. I know sometimes this is a little bit tricky and difficult, and when we do our baking, this is something that can make quite a difference. It's always nice to use every single piece and have every single piece look so pretty. So a spray, I always use a spray or butter or do whichever suits you. But we rip enough paper so that it's hanging over the edges so that you've got the extra so that when you're lifting out, it's not really hard and you're struggling with it and then you pull it out and it sort of all breaks and yeah, that's not fun. So hands, as wide as you can get them, pressing your hands down into the middle of the tin. So thumbs go to one side, fingers go to the other edge, and just pressing across, lining both sides, and then making really tidy corners, and that way we don't get the crumple in the side that often a slice gets caught on, and then as you pull it out, it takes away from those corner pieces. So that's just the first little trick. So it's kind of like wrapping a present nicely, or making hospital corners on a bed. That's the other thing, if anyone actually does that. So there we go. So there's our tin. Okay, so this shortbread base that I'm about to make is super versatile. So it's really good, obviously, for this dish that I'm doing now, but any base. So it could be really good with, say, a Louise slice or a caramel slice. And you can actually also use this for cookies. So make the dough, pop it into the fridge, let it set, pull it out, roll it, and then cut it out in about 8 minutes into the oven. So super versatile. So a really great one to have. So another reason to look at the website to grab the recipe. So got 140 grams of butter. So for this base, this one we're just mixing with a spatula or a wooden spoon, whatever works well for you. We want soft butter, so I know this is always a little bit of a stumbling point when you come to baking, but baking is a science, so we have to remember that this is a time to probably follow recipes, to not divert too far from them, and particularly gluten-free recipes. And people will often ask, big question, people often ask, can you just exchange flour for gluten-free flour? And the answer is often no. There's a lot more behind it. With some dishes, yes, but certainly not with all dishes. So unless you've played around a lot with gluten-free flour and how it absorbs more than anything is probably it's probably a no. So sticking with specific gluten-free recipes if you want something successful, but by all means it's always fun to play around, isn't it? So as long as you're always happy to have some of the duds if they don't work. And maybe that's where gluten-free gets a little bit of a bad rap as well. So I've got half a cup of sugar. We've got a couple of teaspoons of vanilla, and again you can use a paste or you can use an extract. It really doesn't make a whole lot of difference. And this is just a little bit of work to work this all in. So we don't want to use, so as I said, we're using a spatula. We don't want to use a whisk, so we don't want to use a hand whisk or a kitchen mix, because we don't want aeration in this base. So this base we want it to be shortbread, so nice and dense, and just without that aeration, which is what happens when we whisk things. So I was saying about the butter, so this is possibly just a little bit hard, but I'll keep working at it. There we go. So with butter, if it's not at the right temperature, it it is often, it's often just one of those things. You decide you want to make something, you're going to pull it straight out of the fridge. So I would encourage you just to slice it into little tiny squares and to do quick little bursts in the microwave. Otherwise, it's going to end up into a runny mess. And again, with the science of how butter works in baking, it often doesn't go so well. Now, I'm going to make some pistachio flour. So there's pistachio there in the base of what you've eaten and in the middle and on the topping. So the price of pistachios are quite expensive. So that's maybe one thing that you're looking at being like, what? But this is a really beautiful, yummy slice. The pistachios do make a difference, but they're not 100% necessary. So you can exchange this for an almond if you wanted to. But maybe even if you just wanted to do a little bit, I'd put some in the crumble on the top, maybe not so much necessarily in the base. So to make the flour, we're going to just ground down some pistachios. So we're going to ground down a cup of pistachios, and this will make a little bit of a noise, so hopefully it's not going to be too much of a noise for you all. One's got caught under here. There we go. If you don't have a small blender, a small blender like this, then a NutriBullet is really good. I'm going to have to pull that up. A NutriBullet is really good. Otherwise, you can use a standing blender, but it's just going to. It often kicks around the nuts, so they don't work so well. There we go. The pistachios like to get stuck under the blades. Okay, so I hope this isn't going to be too noisy for you. Stand away from it. So we want this to go down to almost like a sand-like texture. So it's not as fine as what an almond flour would be. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, yeah, you can see it up there a little bit. So it still gives that real taste, which is yummy, of pistachio without it getting pulpated too much. So adding to this base, we've got a couple of cups of our Edmonds gluten-free baking flour. Now, I'm going to talk from a really honest standpoint here. This is not just because Edmonds is everywhere and I'm doing something for them. So I've done lots of recipe testing for gluten-free cookbooks. So often in gluten-free cookbooks, they will have a gluten-free flour blend, which you will use, their own gluten-free flour blend, which will be recipeed. So that's great, but then you always have to test it against a store-bought flour as well. So I've tried all the flours. Edmonds is always the one that comes out consistent every single time. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's a wonderful, reliable product, and that's talking from a very honest standpoint, and a lot of trial and error with different types of gluten-free flours and flours just in general, different types of, working with almond meal and making pistachios and buckwheat and rice bran and rice flour and all the rest of them. So we're going with that. We've got our what else we have in here? Pistachios and our ground almonds as well. So we've got a third of a cup of our pistachios and a third of a cup of our almond flour. So again, using these flours is going to give a little bit more of a nutrient value to our beautiful sweet slice. There we go. Now, often in recipes, you will, gluten-free recipes, you'll hear a recipe stating, does your gluten-free flour have xanthan gum in it? So xanthan gum is often added to gluten-free flours. It is added to the Edmonds flour. So it's number 415 that you'll see on the back. It's not added to all flours. It mimics gluten, basically. So it's a binder, and a stabilizer. it's a polysaccharide. It's made of a fermented sugar and a bacteria, which is grown and then ground down to a powder. It has no taste, and it has just a really, really slight smell. For this, I am adding a little bit more xanthan gum to this flour recipe. It just stops it from going crumbly, and it often it's used in bread. It's used in a lot of things. It's used in ice creams and dairy. It's used in sometimes in store-bought like dressings. So it's used in a lot of different things. But it is one of the few things that really does mimic the gluten. So a great one to have in the pantry, and you can get it in all supermarkets really now. Just this brand. That's why I got this brand. It's just a Mrs. Rogers one. So in the herb and spice section in the supermarket. You can also get it in health stores, in the likes of Binnin and things like that. So yeah, but that does, just so you do know, that the Edmonds flour does have it in it. If you're working with recipes, lots of ones that come out of the States will often say, does your gluten-free flour have xanthan gum? If it does, don't add it. If not, then do add it. And it is a real game changer to how the end product of a baked good. Okay, so one of my other favourite tricks in the kitchen is to use your hands, best tool that you could ever have, along with a microplane and a sharp knife. But let's get moving. So working with this, and again, it is just, the hands, as long as they're clean, are your best tool. So we're going to bring this together, and from here we're going to press it into the base. We're going to take a cup of this and put it aside for our crumble topping. So like I was saying earlier, it's like the 2-for-1. And then we'll add a little bit more to the crumble topping in a moment. So there we go. All coming together. Little bit of an arm workout, which is great. Maybe it's 3-for-1 then. So we're just going to pop a little bit of this aside. So I'm going to do about a cup. When we pop in our base into our dish, it's always great. I'm sure lots of you know this. It's always great to use the back of a big spoon to push down. It just allows for a really nice even spread. And when you're doing layered baking, you really want that nice even spread, that nice even base. And when we move from here and then make the frangipani, there's a little bit of it it sort of melts into the base. And this is another nice dish because we're not baking separately, so it's just one in the oven. It's not making the base and then baking and then putting on the next layer. So making it all nice and smooth and really nice to work from the edges, the corners around as you get to the end, and then moving in. Beautiful. So that is that. So we'll pop that aside. And next we're going to move on to making the frangipani. Now the frangipani, traditionally frangipani is made from all almond. So it's made from all almond flour, and that's the beautiful filling that's in almond croissants. So this one we're making with a wee bit of pistachio, and then we've added the matcha to it as well. So it gives a lot of that earthy flavours that the matcha gives. So to make this, we are going to use our standing mixer or just a hand mixer, or failing that, you can just use a whisk. So there are a few options there. So to start with, we have got our butter, so that's softened again. So popping that in. we've got our sugar. Now, baking with sugar, so I'll always use caster sugar. Caster sugar just has a much more even, it's a small crystal, so it has much more even baking. So I'm not sure if that's sort of what a lot of you use, but I'd highly recommend caster sugar for successful baking. There we go. So we've got a quarter cup there, and a little bit of vanilla. And again, your choice of what sort of vanilla you use. Just let it do its thing. Another thing that's traditionally done with frangipani is that it's done with egg, but we're using condensed milk this time, and this again just gives a really consistent use of the frangipani. So sometimes they can be a little bit wet, and then they don't have that gooey set. This one has that really nice using the condensed milk. It just allows for it to be super consistent. So this time we're using this so that we get that aeration. And then we're adding in our condensed milk. And we've got our almond flour and pistachio flour as well. So that's coming next. Now the pistachio flour is going to give that beautiful colour, and then coming from there we've got the matcha, which also gives the really nice colour. So we've got 1.5 cups of almond meal. So that is the main. Oopsie, that is the main base. Now for ease, right now, I'm measuring using cups. If I'm baking and being really specific at home, I'll always weigh. So there's can be quite a big difference in a weight using scales as opposed to using cups. So I would always recommend using scales. So don't take too much note of what I'm doing right now. Most of this has already been pre-measured out. So there we go, we've got the almond meal, then we're following it by the pistachios. So ground pistachios, 1/2 cup of those. And again, you don't have to necessarily use the pistachios. You can replace that with the almond meal. So almond meal, almond flour, ground almonds for this dish, you can interchange. So you can use whichever you like. This will be quite thick. So this is starting off quite thick, and then we're going to add in a little bit of milk and our matcha powder. Now, matcha is definitely having its moment at the moment. It used to be so hard to find, and in fact, yeah, it certainly is great now that you can get it everywhere. It's certainly one of my go-to drinks, and I absolutely love it. So if you don't know what matcha is, it's a green tea. And it is the small leaves of the green tea, and it's ground down into a powder. So this is, it's a beautiful, I don't know if you can see from here, it's a really beautiful green colour, but they really vary. The quality of matcha powder varies. So you can get a culinary grade, you can get a latte grade, or you can get like a ceremonial grade. So the greener it is generally, well, it actually doesn't look that beautiful up there, but it does looking this way. Generally, it's the greener it is, the better it is. So this is a ceremonial grade one, which you don't necessarily need to use for cooking, but you can get it also everywhere now. So it's in the supermarket. In fact, I think I saw it the other day. I think Bell has even done a version of matcha. Another thing to look for when you're getting matcha powder is it can either be pure, which for the purpose of this it's pure, or else it can be pretty loaded with sugar. So depending on where you're at with what you want from health and well-being, they can often be almost 50% sugar. Some of them, like Starbucks, but okay. So that's all coming together really nicely, and again, just a lovely, lovely green colour. And the matcha is quite earthy, so it gives a really earthy flavour to this. So we've got the sweetness of the base with a little bit of earthiness from the pistachios, and then we've got a real yummy earthy flavour from that matcha in the frangipani there. So we're going to pop this straight over the base. You got it? Okay. So, popping that on there. And then we're going to layer this. We're going to layer this with raspberries and dark chocolate, which just on its own, raspberries and dark chocolate, I'm not sure that you can get too much of a better mix or combination, but then you add in the matcha and the almond and the sweetness, and it's just, yeah, absolutely delicious. So when with chocolate, I always choose to cook with a darker chocolate, so anything above 50%. And yeah, my go-to is always Whittaker's as well for that. So just for anything, it's just, again, really consistent and reliable with baking. So trying to make that really nice and smooth also. And then we're going to layer it with raspberries. So frozen raspberries are completely fine. Otherwise, if they're in season and you're really feeling super decadent, then I guess fresh is all good as well. Now, I do these really evenly, and I didn't actually realise that this was weird to do this when you're making something until I was working with a food photographer, and she was like, "Wow, do you do that? Is that how you scatter things, or is that how you Is that?" But there's method behind the madness. I just think that it's really nice that you get a little bit of everything for everyone in every bite. So that's sort of where I'm at with that. So hopefully I'm not the only one who does this. I won't do the same thing with the chocolate, I promise. But yeah, with the berries, you want to get a bit of that goodness, or definitely want to get a bit of it. So I don't tend to. No, these are probably a bit defrosted just because they're sitting out, but it doesn't make any difference. No, it doesn't. And please, if anyone's got any questions as I'm going, just yell out as well. With some baking, obviously, it's going to make a difference, and you've probably found that as well. Like it does make a difference. With this, not so much. This is a super hearty, sturdy slice. Like you can't really go too wrong with this one, and that's why I thought it's just a really nice one to share as well. Also, coming into Christmas, I don't know if we should be talking about it yet, but all the shops are already doing it, aren't they? So I guess we can. It's got all the Christmas colours, and it's so pretty. So it's definitely a festive type slice, and it holds really well as well. So once it's cooked, it will sit really nicely for probably like three or 4 days. It will still hold its structure, and its taste is still really good. All right, so that is that. Now we're going to just finish off with making our crumble topping. So this is our reserved base that we've got, and we're adding in just a few additions. So we're adding in to get the right consistency with this, because that right now as the base, it's still a little bit too. It just needs a little bit more bulk. So we're going to add in some almond flour. We're going to add in some more pistachio flour, 2 tablespoons of that, and 2 tablespoons of our Edmonds Gluten Free flour. And then we're going to make a matcha butter. So I'm just going to melt just a tiny bit of butter, 40 grams of butter, and then I'm going to whisk through again a little bit of matcha powder, just to give it a really nice green topping, and again to add through that flavour. So we've got our melted butter, just half a teaspoon this time of the matcha powder. So matcha powder is super strong, so you don't need a lot of it to give a good taste. And this is if you're wondering what this is a matcha whisk. So this is if you're into matcha, it's such a cool thing to have. It just adds to the whole process of making a really yummy matcha. Now, we'll mix this around just a little bit. So and then add in our butter. Look at that, the beautiful colour again. There we go. And I'm going to use my hands again because they are the best tool. And then we'll sprinkle it evenly over the top. And we're going to top it off with some chopped, more chunkier pistachios, so just to get that last bang of pistachio in there. So there we have it. And it's nice to leave a little bit of space so that the raspberries can peep through. Just so that when it bakes off, you can see a little bit of the chocolate, a little bit of the raspberries, and that beautiful green colour. And then we'll finish it with a few of our chopped pistachios. Does anyone have any questions? Any questions? Anything? It doesn't have to necessarily be about anything that I've made. It can be about anything, really, and I hope that I'd be able to answer it. Yes? Yep, so for the base, for the shortbread base, so if anything with that, if you're finding it too dry, I would add probably just either a little bit more butter is what I'd add first and foremost. Yep, so just work that butter again. And if not, I would add a fat, so I'd add milk, if anything, but butter first, yeah. And even probably a melted butter, actually, as opposed to a worked butter, because that will bring everything together a little bit more. I mean, I guess the great thing about gluten-free baking and working with the likes of gluten-free flour, you don't have to worry about that overworking like you do with normal flour. Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much for that. I sure have. Good question. As it's sitting right there in front of me. Yes, and it's stated on the recipe. So you will see on the recipe that olivani, yes, it has been used. You just have to reduce the cooking time by 5 minutes, I found. So it's just a different melting point of butter to what's in the olivani. But great option. And again, you can make this, and I wanted to talk about it with the croque monsieur too, is that you can make it dairy-free. Although it's loaded with this dairy, we can replace our butter with the olivani, and then we can find our substitute. So there is a great cream cheese, dairy-free cream cheese. And with this, obviously, you can use a different type of milk, a plant-based milk, and that is the only thing. And condensed milk, you can also get a plant-based condensed milk. So it can be made dairy-free. This is also egg-free, this one, so if there's any egg allergies as well. Yeah, so thanks for that question. Does anyone? So this is the final product. You've already tasted it, so you already know what it's like. But final product sort of looks like this. So you can see you've got all your little bits popping through, and it has really just got that really nice Christmassy sort of feel. Or I shouldn't even say Christmassy. It's just got a bright, nice feel. You can top it off with some freeze-dried raspberries if you really wanted to give it another little pop, or some icing sugar or whichever. But yeah. So does anyone else have any questions? Just a reminder, yes. Yes, please. Yeah. As a replacement. Yep, such a good question. So yes, oats. So my first go-to is if I'm not going to use oats, I'll use quinoa flakes. So that would be my first go-to. But yes, I find that buckwheat. So to answer that question directly first, I would grind the buckwheats raw. So I do that again, and a blend like this will work for that. It's pretty hard on the blades and hard on the machines, but you can still do it. Another option is sunflower seeds to grind down and to use. Again, the texture's not going to be exactly the same, but it's a great option. Yeah, it's a really great option. But yeah, I would always go quinoa flakes first just because of that absorption. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes? How easy is it? It's pretty easy. Did you see most of the demonstration? Pretty much, yeah. It's pretty easy. It's not too hard. I reckon you could do it. Do you bake at home? No. Oh, you could do it. I reckon you could easily do it. Give it a go. Oh, so sweet. So as I mentioned, recipes are on the Coeliac New Zealand website. They're on the Edmonds website and the Vogel's website for this one. I'm not sure if there's any samples left, but if there is, please help yourself on the way out. I'll be milling around, so if you have any questions that you don't want to ask out loud now, then please do come up. I always love to talk food particularly, but I like to talk about anything really. So please come and have a yarn if you see me. I will be, as a Coeliac New Zealand ambassador, I'll be putting there'll be a few recipes that are on their website and in their Coeliac Link magazine that's coming out very soon, I think, isn't it, the latest one? And have a look on the way out as well at what is on offer, the resources that are there, and have a chat to all the lovely ladies in their blue. If you want to find out anything else about Coeliac New Zealand and the membership there. So thank you all for sitting through and for listening to me. Thank you to Coeliac New Zealand for having me, and to Goodman Field, Edmonds and Vogels. It's been great to be here today.